Hey guys, and welcome to one more episode of Builder Nation. For today's agenda, we have Josh Figuered, co-founder and director of business development at Novium, a robotics-inspired engineering firm that does business like humans. Welcome, Josh. Super happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me today. Excited to be here.
Okay, so why don't we start the interview by allowing yourself to introduce to our audience, maybe share a little bit about your past experience.
Yeah, so basically our company Novium, we're about a year old right now, and my history has been largely in space and robotics, as well as that of my co-founders. So all of us met several years kind of in our past lives at NASA Johnson Space Center in the robotics lab down there. And essentially, we did a variety of stuff, humanoid robots, vehicular systems. So like a lot of the robots you see when you go to the NASA website that are big and gold can range anywhere from Robonaut, the MRV or Chariot vehicle, which was basically a concept developed for the next generation of manned rover systems. So that was something that was actually what I worked on at the very beginning of my career at NASA, was doing the drivetrain system for that rover. Spent many years kind of following that project, doing tests out in the desert, kind of getting, learning everything we could about it on Earth, to kind of get to the moon essentially. And then did, like a number of other humanoid robots, like the Valkyrie project was really cool. That was something, it was one of the DARPA grand challenges that actually me and all my co-founders, that's kind of like, that was the project that brought us all together, was doing Valkyrie, which was just an amazing challenge. Like in robotics, it was, anything that's a DARPA challenge is obviously about as hard as it gets. And it was a year time frame to try and put this robot together to compete, and everything had to be wireless, and at that stage, bipedal motion for humanoid robots was also a very, very challenging thing. So that was an exciting project. Worked on a number of other vehicles there that were, and the common thread with most of the vehicles I worked on at NASA, they had these very unique drivetrain systems. We would refer to like crab drives. So how like you see a crab on the beach and it can kind of go back and forth and, can spin around in circles. So all of the wheels essentially could rotate either 180 or 360 degrees, which gave you the ability to, you could go at a direction and the vehicle could rotate around in circles. So you could do just really, really cool stuff. And also most of the vehicles we developed there also had an active suspension system, which allowed the rovers to adapt to different terrain features. They could actually lift the legs up, to climb up on a big rock, and kind of equalize that traction. So it was just really exciting part of my career. That was, I did several internships there, was there kind of out of school. And then I moved on to do underwater robots. So I spent a couple years at a company, it was originally Houston Mechatronics, it's now Nauticus Robotics, and working on a large variety, just kind of a subsea robots. We were trying to take what we knew at NASA and bring it to the underwater world, which is like, it's similar to space in a lot of ways. There's just enormous challenges. It's amazing how much of the ocean we haven't explored yet, what little we know about it. And largely that's based on kind of the technology we have available, So spent some years there, was the director of mechanical engineering, worked on a lot of really exciting projects there. And then decided to move home back to Bloomington, Indiana, left Houston, and I've been here since 2020. And, it was one of those kind of interesting turns in my career where it was like, I just wanted to move home, kind of be closer to family, and, didn't really know what I was going to be doing. And when I moved back here, I ended up just talking to some friends, quickly got kind of a gig building a drone for a really cool local company called Terran Robotics that's working on some unique construction stuff with kind of the approach of using drones to do construction. And that sort of snowballed into, this was a COVID thing. And, my friends from NASA reached out to me and said, hey, we're thinking about getting together, doing some, more side work. Would you be interested? And at the time I was just like, well, yeah, I need another job, So that really just snowballed quickly and turned into what is today now Novium, which we started just over a year ago. Our first birthday was July 16th. And it's just been a wild adventure. We've kind of used those skills that we kind of cultivated at NASA as roboticists. Really just, like we were looking at industry and there's so many applications, for robotics. And what robotics is at its core is, it's not just a humanoid robot. Like people look at the movies and, if it's walking around and talking, that's kind of the classic mindset for what robotics is. And really it's when you look at those technologies, what a robot is, it's electronics, it's tying a bunch of sensors together. There's machine learning applications and kind of intelligence that you derive from the sensors. There's parts that are, moving, which are, controlled by electronics and software. And that's like the core of what robots is. So you look around and you're like, well, what does that? And it's almost everything today. Electric cars are kind of, essentially robots at this point with all the sensors they have, the electromechanical systems built in. A lot of modern industry, and that effort to be greener, is moving towards electrification, which is a lot of what robotics is. So essentially, we kind of founded our company on the premise of helping people in all these different industries, using our skills and kind of the lens that we view world as roboticists and, just in like solving very challenging problems. It's like we've collectively almost never done one of the same thing twice. People usually come to us with I've got this hard problem, it hasn't really been done. What do you even think? And often it's, the response is, well, we've never done that, but let's break it down and start and see how we go about doing that. That's kind of been our mindset, our entire careers, is to take on new challenges, break them down to first order fundamental principles, and then just kind of use our skills to develop that. And, now just, it's really cool with all our customers that we work with, kind of just bringing them new and innovative things, tying a lot of skill sets together that, a lot of companies might not have in-house.
Wow, it is really interesting because I was actually like doing my research in Novium and I was like, wow, I mean, this looks kind of new since you say that you started like 1 year ago, but I've never looked at a company that does what you're doing, right? So I think it's really interesting. I don't know how many people you guys have now on your team, but I mean, it's kind of new, right? So what would you say it has been the biggest challenge when it comes to, okay, founding a new company with a new concept, with new customers? What would you say it has been like the hard challenge?
I would say everything. It's one of those things where I think, yeah, like we've been through our first year. I think we've been, very, part of it is just lucky, like ironically, founding the company during COVID, a large part of how we operate is we have engineers working remotely. And that wouldn't have really been possible, in many ways without COVID, like because we are designing hardware, we're delivering hardware to our customers. That requires us to be very hands-on and, like playing with physical systems. And it was cool starting it in COVID because we everybody was learning to do that. It was like, how do we have a hardware company and maybe leverage remote work or hybrid work? And so, a lot of companies had to adapt their systems to it. And we built our system, with that intention, like discovering the ways that we could do that. And so kind of largely how we function is, one thing that's incredible, like you asked how many people, we're up to, I think we just passed 20 people yesterday, which I think has been really incredible in kind of the first year, just getting on your feet and getting going. And, everybody we've hired is just like absolutely amazing, like having been at NASA and, having been at, like Nauticus, like I've worked with just these incredible engineers that are just like, it's been places where they've been assembled to solve these extremely hard problems. And, it's like, so my career, I've been fortunate to work with the best. And, in starting a new company, not having a name like NASA, not having a lot of money behind us when we started, that was one of the big challenges we faced, was like, how are we going to get the best people? And it was something that our customers often asked, initially was, well, we hired you guys because of you guys. You like, we know where you come from. We know what you're capable of as the
We know
founders.
your background. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, right. And it's like, so why would we trust other people? Why couldn't we hire those other people? And really the answer is like, the remote work thing has been so amazing for us because we've been able to tap into these talent pools like all across the country. And, like so many people are wanting to do remote, they're wanting to do hybrid because of some of the work-life balances they found. We've just been able to source incredible talent. And it's just like the people that I work with are really awesome. And like it's cool that they come from all different areas of the country because they come from all different backgrounds. And, like the tendency in coming from NASA would have naturally been to, hire my friends from NASA, but that also like can limit the range of, thought, like limit people's experience and what they've designed before. And so this has just been cool, like being able to leverage talent across the country. We've gotten people from, totally different engineering backgrounds, different experiences. And one of the fundamental concepts of our company is that we're very value focused. Which is something I like, I'm so passionate about with our employees, our new hires, our clients. Like part of the reason why we're different is because we've got, a set of values we live by that, that's really how we guide the company. And, that kind of idea is it's give first. And it's always this, how can I help? When we have a new client, it's really just like, how can we help you? And sometimes it's making an introduction to somebody else, that's not us, because we're not perfect for everything. And, a lot of times we work with startup companies who have a limited budget, they're trying to get going, like cost is important, speed is important, and sometimes they just need advice, and it's like, and we're happy to, give that to them as people have spent, collectively 50, 60, 70 years, doing robotics, give that advice to start them on their way, and then maybe they come back and they're big customers later, maybe we can help them out. But like that idea of give first has been really important in our business, of just like, we think, giving is good business. It's not about what I can get, anything like that, like giving is a big element. So that's been a big part of what's really like, propelled us forward and made us successful this first year. I think is just kind of the values, integrity, teamwork, personal growth, which deals with like hiring people, say, that are mentors and lifetime learners, so that we have this community of people that like to learn together, they like to grow together. And, that's really culminated in a lot of our success, I think, and gotten us to where we've gotten by the end of this first year. Because it's a tough climate to start a company in, and, a tougher climate to succeed. And yeah, and every day is a challenge. And I mean, we've created such a good team that we're able to really take on that challenge, every day and fight the fires that need to be fought.
It is totally. And I think it's super exciting because robotics is such a growing community nowadays, that you have like all the options of the world, and you have like all the engineering backgrounds that you can get. And especially now that I know that you're in the hiring process, I'm pretty sure that it's super rewarding knowing that you have a great team to work with. So I think that, and I was actually going to ask you, I mean, you mentioned the process, right? So could you break down a little bit? I know that first it's define the problem, then it's like giving a value proposition for the client, and then you actually start like working with them for a period of time, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it really depends on the client, because some clients come in, like if you're a larger company, you may come in with a very defined idea, like that's essentially like, here's the bullet points, this is what I want, how much is it going to cost, get started on it, so that's one end of the spectrum. And some engineering service companies, that's their entire business. It's like, we're only going to do government contracts, we're only going to do defense, or we're only going to work with, very large companies. And we try and really tailor our services. Like I said, like sometimes it's a startup we work with. Maybe we only do design reviews, so they pay us an hour a week and we give them pointers, we help them off in the right direction. Versus, a company that's maybe, like one of our clients is building a space station, and so it's like, that is a multi-year, very involved, like in the weeds, cross every T, dot every I, there's a process, and so that's kind of the first factor is just like, what is your company? How big are you? What are you trying to do? What is that budget you have to work with? And, do you have a technical background? Because that matters on the conversation too. Some people come with an idea and they're not engineers, and they might need help like, well, what does this idea break down to technically to make a product? And so that's kind of where we help. It's with that somebody who might not have a technical background, say, our process is going to look very different, where it's going to be asking a lot of questions, diving into these details, understanding like, well, what's your final vision? And then like, here's the steps we can take to kind of build value. Like I say, especially with a startup, it's all about getting those stages of investment. So you gotta demonstrate something valuable to your investors, so it's like, okay, we get your moonshot. If we can get you here like this quickly and demonstrate that ability, like, does that give you the ability to confidently go raise money so then you can take the next leap, and so we'll really break that down in detail, try and help extract those highest value things, so that we can go right after it, versus like another, larger company, like I said, like say building a space station or something, that's going to be obviously a much grander vision. It's going to be like we take our time to really get into like requirements. There's going to be a lot of stuff, but in general, we're very willing to work with people, and even kind of like, we like to dream with our clients too, of like, okay, you got this idea, let's think about it, let's kind of write those requirements together so that you can be successful. And so we try and create that low bar of entry, because often that's the most intimidating thing, I think, is just like not knowing every step and feeling like you have to know every step so that you can direct somebody, very specifically. We really pride ourselves on kind of being a teammate, and that's really where, the focus of our process. And like I said, it goes back to that mentality of, giving first. It's just like, how can we provide value and breaking down that process and, really doing it with that in mind, essentially.
It's kind of like a mentoring part, that's great.
Yeah. And that's, again, like I said, like one of our values is just personal growth. And it, like, to me, that really comes down into mentoring and learning. Like I like to tell like all of our employees, it's like, we really like to hire people that are interested in just like they're nonstop learners, like, both like academically, they want to be better as people, it's just like, how do I be more emotionally intelligent, and it's just like, yeah. And then you got to teach those skills, and you hire new people. Now you've got to teach things that I taught you. And that was, again, going back to that as we grew the company and, taking on jobs and our clients being like, well, I'm not working with you anymore, I'm working with this new person, and what does that mean? And it's like, well, we invest in mentorship, that's what we're all about. And it's like the same of how you see like our interaction of like, how do we legitimately help you? Like with all of our employees, that's kind of how we look too. It's like, there's not a lot of, the numbers are growing as far as roboticists, people that are truly roboticists, but the community is kind of small, and it's been that way in the space community too. Like the people who are experts in this are small. And in order for those things to grow, which is where really industry is going, we got to invest in mentorship. It's like, you don't learn everything you need to know in school. And a lot of kind of the training and what really teaches you to be a good engineer in life is on the job, and you need those people that are willing to mentor and take those years of experience. And, as somebody who's done that with interns and stuff, for years, it's just like, to me, it's a very gratifying thing to, like when I take on somebody as say, an intern, and I'm in a mentorship role, like I just get so much pride by, after a year, when I can start to see like, they're going to be a lot better than I am, by the time they're my age, and in a sense, that's like, that just gives me great value and great pride of just like, kind of evolving the profession, and just like really ensuring that the future, there's going to be even, more amazing things being created, and we're going to be able to push the envelope if people can start with the skills I have, 5-10 years earlier. That really puts everything ahead, I think.
Wow, I think it's great. I mean, the fact that you guys have that mentality, I think it's the best, I don't know, the best first step in order to build a company. And I think that's the key in order to have a successful company, right? I actually wanted to ask you, like, what will you say it's a field of robotics that you guys are working with the most, or the one that you enjoy the most?
It's just like, it's almost hard to say because, with our company, we were very intentional in that we didn't want to commit to a certain industry. Like we really wanted, I know a lot of companies will say like, well, we're going to be a space company, and so everything's in space. And, for us, we came from the space industry. So a large part of our business currently is in space. We're doing some space station work. We're working with NASA. We're working with satellite manufacturer. It's like we're doing a lot of stuff in the space field, where we came from, and leveraging some of the, unique skills we have in understanding like, how do you put something in space? There's a process, and not a lot of people understand that. So that was an obvious industry, but I think there's, in the kind of traditional, like very pure robotics, there's so many things going on. Like we've seen the construction field, the past year we've been in this, a lot of people are leveraging robots for construction and trying to see, what parts of the process, we could make more efficient with robots, we can make more cost effective, because obviously like, housing's getting very expensive. And if there's ways that we can, reduce the cost, that's a huge win for everybody, like who has trouble affording a house, which I think in this day and age is almost everybody, it's just, it's kind of crazy. So construction's been a big one. Warehouse robotics has really been blowing up. That's another one we've kind of been involved in. The farming industry is a really fascinating one. That's one we're getting more involved in. And I mean, there's huge, there's a huge range of applications in that. Like most people think of farms as outside. There's a lot of indoor farming operations now that are, vertical farms, and they're really tremendous from the standpoint of like, from an ecological standpoint, like they can control, the amount of water that's going into growing these crops like much better. So there's less water wastage. There's less, carbon emissions, like in transporting vegetables across the country. Like now they can be grown locally, like within, maybe 20 miles from the supermarket, or like hopefully in the future, even closer. There's less pesticides and stuff because you're controlling that environment. And, like you're not fighting bugs and stuff. If you've ever grown a garden at home, like the big thing is fighting off bugs, that are just constantly like, we want to eat this too. So like having that more controlled environment, you don't have to put as much pesticides on the food or in the soil, you can grow better food. So that's an industry we're especially excited about, and kind of how you can, leverage robots there. And I think there's similarities to be seen in like how things are going with the warehouse automation space, it's and how we kind of work within that environment. There's some carryovers. And also just like we're starting to see some cool stuff in like the medical field. That's kind of opportunities with a lot of really cutting edge stuff people are doing with the brain that, it's less of robots, maybe, there may be sort of robotic applications for some of these sensors and stuff, but a lot of it goes back to the basis of what I said, like, we do electronics, we do sensors, we do very tightly custom integrated, kind of electronic systems. And there's some really cool stuff that's on the horizon, and brain sensing and augmentation, and like, for looking at diseases and preventing them, for getting people into a more meditative state to deal with stress. So yeah, we've purposely been very broad looking for those opportunities, and I suspect we'll eventually have a space division, and maybe we'll have a construction division, but we just really want to find where those opportunities are before we draw the line and box ourselves in anywhere.
And I think that's a really smart choice, because at the end of the day, I mean, just like you say, you will always keep learning from each of the industries, from each company. So I think that's amazing. Especially, I think the medical field, it's super interesting when it comes to robotics. You have such a big opportunity there. So I think that's gonna be really interesting once you get down to it. And I wanted to ask you, I mean, since you started kind of like, okay, maybe not in the middle of the pandemic, but a little bit afterwards, have you found like any critical challenges when it comes to the procurement process?
Yeah, that's another D, all of the above kind of thing. Absolutely. I mean, that has been another thing that we try and be really scrappy for all of our clients, of often something that we normally use, that we're comfortable with. We're just like, we might get to this, like we had one client last year actually where we had designed, say, around I think a specific motor, and we got, did the design, and we were going to purchase it. And like literally 3 days before we were purchasing it, like we checked at the beginning of the week, and they were like, yeah, we got 5,000 in stock. We were like, great, that's awesome. And then we go to make the order, and they're like, yeah, it's like a 24-week lead time. And we were like, wait, what? Like you had these in stock. And they were like, yeah, somebody came in and bought all 5,000 of them yesterday, because like they just can't get them, and they were just like, let's buy them all. And so it's been a very rocky process of, we've found just we're constantly scraping around for alternatives, and we try and be really flexible. And I think adversity always can build strength. So at first it was annoying, obviously, and frustrating. But we've really looked at it just as like another opportunity, which I think you have to look at these things as, is like, now we know of all these like new vendors we can use, we know of new manufacturers, like, and it makes us a lot more agile, and like also just be able to provide, more solutions to our clients, and provide more workarounds. And I kind of see that as some reoccurring value now when people come to us, with an idea, or maybe it's something very specific, and it's like, God, I'm just like, I think I want to build it, and I need to use this, but it's like, it says it's going to be 12 weeks. And it's like, well, okay, we got this option and this option, and let's go explore those together. And often they're like, oh, I've never heard of any, like, this is great. Like, so yeah, like any other industry, we've been very strongly faced with that, but we've just been rolling with the punches, and, trying to make the best of it. And hopefully, things get easier.
Hopefully, yes. I can imagine the amount of stress you guys, I mean, especially you and your co-founders must have felt once this like happened for the very first time, like trying to get a product, trying to buy some hardware, and you're like, well, I gotta wait like 12 weeks or something like that. And especially once you have the customer like waiting for you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's managing that expectation. I mean, we've gone as far as like, we've been calling the customs people, and because like our orders stuck there. And I mean, we always try and kind of go that extra mile, because like we've been in those situations like throughout our careers, and it's just like every day matters. And it's just like, we don't like to accept oh, this is going to be like 12 weeks, and now it's going to be 16 because there's a boat stuck somewhere. It's like, when we're faced with that, then we start getting into like, well, how can we at least do something to start moving forward? Maybe we can do something creative and get something else that isn't the end product to test the software on so that we're moving. And, you know, we get this one delay, but then we get ahead in another area. So now that we can kind of make it up on the end. Yeah, those are things we're always kind of looking for.
Oh, I love it. Okay, Josh, and last but not least, do you have any advice for future entrepreneurs, future engineers starting on this path?
Yeah, you know, the one thing, I mean, I would say, and maybe this is the less common thing, I mean, is that through, and so maybe it's actually helpful, you know, is that I think like when you're an entrepreneur, when you're in the startup industry, there's like a prevalent thing, you know, in our culture this day, that's this sort of you know, hustle, like just work harder kind of mindset. And I mean, I think like in a lot of ways, it's like, yeah, do you have to work hard? You absolutely have to work hard. But I think some people get focused on the idea, like, and some companies are focused on the idea of like just putting in more hours, and like more hours ends up being a better result. And the problem with that really is that, you know, it's like, I think in the modern age, especially with what we do, it involves a lot of creativity. And creativity is not necessarily like an hours game, you know, like it requires a lot of just work and doing too. But that's what a lot of people miss, is they, you know, they pull all these all-nighters, they, you know, just really work themselves to death and can work themselves sick. It's like I've done that in my career, you know, which was the epiphany for me, was working 80 or 100-hour weeks, you know, for years and years and years, and thinking that was going to produce more. And I was just burnt out mentally, and I couldn't think clearly, and I couldn't be creative. And so like those hours I was putting in became less effective. And I think it's the same thing when people are in college and they're pulling all-nighters and they're trying to study for that test, and they're staying up till 4 a.m. And then when it comes time to that test, their brain is like just mush, and it doesn't matter, you know. And that's always the number one thing that I was like, if I could, you know, transport myself back in the past and be like, you know, what would you tell 20-year-old Josh? It's like, go to sleep, you know, like, and when I listen to that, like often in the morning, you know, if I'm like stressed out and I'm going, and I, you know, I kind of try and set up like cutoffs for myself at the end of the day, you know, like, okay, it's 7, time to wind down. And, you know, like, and I'll wake up early tomorrow, I got a good night's sleep, and suddenly these things that were massive problems that probably would have taken me 6 hours to finish in the state my brain was in, like I'm done in 2. And I'm almost amazed. I'm like, this seemed like such an issue last night. And with sleep and just kind of like restoring my body a little bit, like it's no problem, you know? And so I think that's the biggest thing, because especially with founders, it's just very easy to overwork yourself to the point of being ineffective and not being able to make good decisions. And, you know, that often people learn it the hard way. They get sick, you know, from doing it. And so like, I think that's my biggest piece of advice is, you know, work hard, but work smarter instead of harder. You know, that's at the end of it, I think.
Wow, it's a great quote. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing, Josh. I'm actually gonna tweet this, guys, so be prepared. Be prepared. This
Okay,
quote. It's amazing. Thank you.
great.
Well, really, thank you so much, Josh, for being here and sharing your experiences. Do you have any social media handles? Where can people find you? Where can we follow you?
Yeah, so really for our company, noviumdesigns.com, that's our website. And there's a couple other, there's one with a floating pen, and we're not the pen people, we're the robot people. So, you know, our logo is this white and blue N here. So when you see that, you've gone to the right place. So that's a good place to kind of just see a little bit about what we do, reach out to us. And then also LinkedIn, you know, we're Novium Designs on LinkedIn as well. And, you know, if people are, we're almost constantly hiring. So if kind of some of the stuff I said, you know, rings as a inspiration to you and what, you know, you'd like to do, you know, check out our LinkedIn page. We've always got jobs posted there. We're kind of still, ironically, that's been the funny part of this first year, is we didn't actually get our website live until like 2 weeks ago. And all this was based on no website, which was kind of even more insane. And so we're still kind of tweaking the website, and in the next few weeks, we'll have all the jobs posted on that and kind of the website polished up. But yeah, like I said, we're almost always hiring a lot of different roles, and kind of if you're interested in robotics, I think it's a fun place to be, and fun company to be part of. So.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I'm pretty sure all of our audience will be like super thankful to be hearing this. I think that's great.
Great. And if you apply for a job, it's like you get to come have a personal conversation with me because I do all our hiring as well. So, I get to meet you in person. So.
Okay, guys, I hope you are listening to this. This was great. This is a great opportunity. So thank you so much, Josh, for sharing it.
Absolutely.
And remember, guys, that you can also find more information, interesting articles, interesting interviews with really cool founders and co-founders just like Josh directly on our website, controlhub.com/builder-nation. We would love to hear from you. And once again, thank you so much, Josh, for taking the time. Really highly appreciate it. This was great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.